Hello, 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 welcome back to the Saba show, and today we've got the round 10 predictions, round 10 already. I cannot be asked, I'm absolutely knackered, so I'm going to keep things extremely quick and to the point here. Let's get into this week's fixtures. We've got no graphics this week, I am running short on time, but we'll start things off with the Carlton-Sydney game on Friday night at 7:50 PM. The Swans picked up a much-needed win. They had had 2 losses on the trot. The Blues picked up the 4 points, I do believe, last week against the Giants. It was the last game for Leon Cameron, but that's not what we're talking about. Corey Durden got the Rising Star nom. The Blues looked very resilient throughout. Could have easily lost the game there. And picked up the 4 points, ultimately by a considerable margin. The Swans, look, yeah, they needed to pick up the points, and they have, well, they did it quite convincingly. They had about 34 shots on goal. The Bombers have really shown no resistance a lot of the season, so they really needed to capitalise on that and get some good percentage. So they did that. I'm going to pick Carlton at home, but the Swans, you would also back them in to pick up the 4 points. I just think Carlton, well, haven't lost the game in Melbourne this year, and I think they'll continue the trend this weekend. Geelong Port at GMHBA, the Cats end up winning last week, and so did the Power. Correction, the Cats lost to the Saints last week. I think we did flag the Saints to win and Geelong to drop a few. There have been a few games this season the Cats have gone in potentially getting upset, and that's what happened last week. The Power picked up the 4 points in what was a game that I guess was really... the heat of the game had gone by about 10 minutes into the game. We already knew the result going into that fixture, given how diabolical North have been. Thanks, Windows, for the chip in there. But we have... Look, I reckon the Cats will win this. Last time we played or had a game at GMHBA, it was a loss to Geelong. I do think the Power could give the Cats a good run for their money, but I think Geelong is just going to have too much firepower. Bulldogs Gold Coast 1:45 Saturday in Ballarat. The Bulldogs lost their last fixture at Mars Stadium to the Crows by a very close margin, and I do have a little vibe that the Gold Coast Suns could potentially pull off an upset. They've beaten Freo and Sydney this year. They've beaten, well, obviously Freo at home, but they beat Sydney away from home. There is another opportunity to win one of these big games away from home. Look, you'd think the Dogs would win this game. They've got, well, a considerably better list. They played very, very well last week against the Pies. And look, I think some people would have flagged that fixture and said, well, the Dogs were just not going to win. I've tipped them, well, in my case, I've tipped them that many weeks that I just lost hope last week. I just thought the Pies would win. But the Doggies got the job done. Look, you'd back them in at home. They're much more familiar with the conditions, but the Suns have been very good this season. I think it'll be close, but I think the Dogs will pick up the 4. Next fixture is North Melbourne, and look, I'm going to keep this short and sharp and keep it under 10 seconds long. Melbourne are winning this, and they're going to win it large. North have been shit. Melbourne ran West Coast off their feet, and North Melbourne have been close to, if not the worst team in the league, alongside West Coast. So we saw what happened last week, and we'll probably see it again. D's to pick up the 4 very, very convincingly. Crows St Kilda at night. The Crows lost last week. That one was against Brisbane. They actually stayed with them for a good quarter, or quarter and a half, 2 quarters. They were very much in the contest at halftime, and then just fell away a little bit. You just sensed that Brisbane were going to have too much class, and usually good teams find a way. So that's what Brisbane did there. Unfortunately, the Crows, I mean, the scoreboard didn't look awful, but it probably was a little bit harsh. St Kilda, very, very mature performance against Geelong in past seasons. Geelong are winning that game. They actually found themselves down at halftime, the Saints, but then managed to claw themselves back into the contest. And you know what? Look, I think they could have a really good season on their hands, given, those performances like that have really been the difference maker in, differentiating them from the previous season. In the seasons that they haven't made finals, they haven't been able to pick up good scalps like that. Saints are going to win this one. Crows, I think it's going to be a bit of a similar vibe to last week. I think the Saints are just going to flex their muscles a little bit in the second half and, pick up the 4. Dreamtime at the G, Richmond, Essendon. Essendon have looked disinterested for the majority of the season, and the Tigers are just hitting peak form now. Picked up a very good win last week. That one was against the Hawks, and the Hawks went... Well, those two teams went neck and neck pretty much, the whole game. And then the Richmond Tigers, they got like that 2-goal, 3-goal lead and were just able to hold them off. Dustin Martin back playing his best footy is great to see. I think he kicked 3 goals last week, and that was ultimately the difference maker. It was really high scoring. The back line did show a little bit of vulnerability. Obviously, that's not really refined, but the Bombers, look, they got no threat up forward. Peter Wright's the best thing they've got, and you can basically double team him, and then, the rest of the Bombers forward line is already accounted for because they don't do anything. They don't do themselves any favours. So, look, Richmond to win in what is going to be a heavily hyped up, but ultimately disappointing product of football, at least from the Bombers' perspective, that is. Richmond will win. GWS West Coast on Sunday. This is actually really intriguing because I don't know what the Giants are going to come out and achieve in their first game without Leon Cameron in charge. The Eagles have just been god-awful. Looked, visibly exhausted in the last quarter of that game against the D's. I mean, that's really just showing the difference of two sides. One side that's full strength, flying high, got basically an abundance of players to pick from, and the Eagles have been decimated all year. They've got top-up players in their side, and they've won one game all year. So, really, two different worlds there. I think the Giants are going to bounce back. I think they're going to pick up a much-needed win. You could, consider their season already done, but look, I have a bit of faith in them to, claw it back. But look, I think they can get themselves to somewhere around the 10-win mark, but I don't think that's going to be enough this season. So Giants will win at home, but I think West Coast potentially could create an upset here. I think the Giants, though, will be looking to make amends and redeem themselves on what was a pretty bad last quarter last week. Hawthorn Brisbane, and this game has caused a few issues for tippers in previous seasons. The Hawks usually like to win this game at home as underdogs. The Lions last week, as we mentioned earlier, they picked up the 4 points. This is going to be a really hard one to tip. Jack Gunston's out for a big period, and he has been really vital to the Hawks' early season success, at least what we saw in the first month of the season. It has dropped off now. The Lions are absolutely soaring at 8-1, and it's been a very quiet 8-1 that they have acquired. So, look, Lions are going to win this one. I would not be surprised if the Hawks just do a Hawthorn and pick up the 4 points somehow. I think last season they blew out Brisbane, or it may have been the season before in this fixture. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get treated to something similar. But look, I'm going to tip Brisbane to win this one. And last game of the round, it is Fremantle taking on Collingwood. Collingwood lost last week by about 50, and the Dockers, well, they lost last week to Gold Coast, and there was always going to be a slip-up for Fremantle, but I didn't actually know when it was going to happen. It actually turned out to be against a side that you don't really want to be, in the discussion when considering the fact you've lost to them, the Gold Coast Suns. So, Fremantle, look, home game for them. They absolutely own the 4:40 or 5:20 it is here, time slot on a Sunday. So look, I would back them in to win this one at home. The Pies have done some strange things where they lose games that they could win and then pick up the 4 points against teams that you, in your wildest dreams, you wouldn't have thought they're going to pick up the 4 points from. Look, I think Fremantle, well, they showed last week that they are open to, a bit of a vulnerable side. They actually are not immune to that. So it could potentially happen here, given, the Pies are catching them on the back of a loss that would have lowered their confidence just a little bit after a very strong start to the season. But look, I think Fremantle are going to come away victors in this one. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Let me know what you reckon is going to transpire in this week of AFL fixtures, but that's going to be it from me. So thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.